72% of people choose the certain option. Change 3 words in the exact same problem, keep every number identical, alter nothing about the actual mathematics involved, and 78% of people now choose the gamble. Same outcomes, same probabilities, same lives on the table, opposite decision. The viewer does not yet know what the choice even was. That is the point. Hold that disorientation for a moment, because what happened in that gap between the 2 numbers is happening to you constantly, and you have never once caught it in the act. In 1981, 2 psychologists named Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman published a paper in the journal Science titled The Framing of Decisions and the Psychology of Choice. Their setup was almost administrative in its plainness. They told participants to imagine the United States is preparing for the outbreak of an unusual disease, expected to kill 600 people. 2 alternative programs to combat the disease have been proposed. The researchers' working assumption was mundane, almost boring. People would evaluate the programs by their actual survival math, because the math across every version of the question never changed. That was the hypothesis. It was wrong. Here is what actually happened. The first group of participants received the choice framed entirely in terms of lives saved. Program A, 200 people will be saved for certain. Program B, a 1 in 3 chance that all 600 people will be saved, and a 2 in 3 chance that no people will be saved. 72% of this group chose Program A, the safe number, the guaranteed 200. Now, the second group. They were given the identical underlying scenario. Same disease, same 600 people, same probabilities, but framed in terms of lives lost. Program C, 400 people will die for certain. Program D, a 1 in 3 chance that no people will die, and a 2 in 3 chance that all 600 people will die. 78% of this group chose Program D, the gamble. Sit with that for a second, because the sentence that follows is the entire reason this study still gets taught more than 4 decades later. Program A and Program C describe the exact same outcome. 200 saved is mathematically identical to 400 dead, out of 600 people. Program B and Program D describe the exact same gamble. A 1 in 3 chance of saving everyone is mathematically identical to a 1 in 3 chance that no one dies. Nothing about the world changed between these 2 experiments. Only the words did. And the majority preference did not shift slightly. It reversed. The same population of human minds, presented with the same reality, arrived at opposite conclusions depending entirely on whether that reality was described as something gained or something lost. This deserves a moment of genuine fascination rather than alarm, because what is being revealed here is not stupidity, it is architecture. Decades of assumption in economics held that people evaluate outcomes by their final state. How many people live, how much money you end up with, what your bank balance reads on the final day. Tversky and Kahneman's data said otherwise. People do not evaluate outcomes in isolation. They evaluate them relative to a reference point, and critically, that reference point is not fixed by reality. It is fixed by language. Describe 600 people as a starting point and 200 survivors as a gain against that baseline, and the mind becomes protective of the gain. It turns risk-averse. It clings to the certain 200 rather than gamble it away. Describe the same 600 people with 400 deaths as a loss against that same baseline, and the mind refuses to accept the loss as final. It turns risk-seeking. It gambles, because a guaranteed loss feels psychologically worse than an uncertain one, even when the expected value is identical. This happens more often than anyone notices in themselves. Subscribe if you want to keep catching the frame before it catches you. This is the core of what Kahneman would later formalize as prospect theory, and it rests on a principle called loss aversion, the finding that losses are weighted, psychologically, roughly twice as heavily as equivalent gains. It is not that humans are irrational, it is that human value is not computed on an absolute scale at all. It is computed on a curve that bends around a 0 point, a reference point, and that point moves the instant the framing moves. The math never entered the decision. The words did, and here is the detail worth sitting with. At no point did either group feel like they were reacting to language. Every participant in that room believed they were responding to consequences. They were responding to a preposition. Where else does this operate quietly outside a laboratory? A physician tells a patient that a surgical procedure has a 90% survival rate. A second physician, describing the identical procedure, tells a different patient it carries a 10% mortality rate. Documented consent research shows these two framings produce different rates of patients agreeing to proceed. Same surgeon, same odds, same scalpel. A financial advisor describes a fund as having an 80% chance of maintaining its current value. Another describes the same fund as carrying a 20% chance of loss. Client comfort levels move measurably between the two sentences, despite representing one identical fund. A company memo announces that employees will retain 90% of their current bonus structure. A different memo describing the same policy change announces that employees will lose 10% of their bonus. Reactions in the room are not the same reaction. At the grocery counter, a package of ground meat labelled 75% lean will outsell, at the identical price point, the identical product labelled 25% fat. Same fat content. Same shrink wrap. Different verdict, and nobody standing at that counter believes wording had anything to do with it. But that was not the worst part. The worst part is what happens after the decision is made, because the cost of this mechanism is not that people choose differently. It's that they believe they chose freely. A patient who consents to a procedure under the survival framing walks away believing they weighed the medical facts. An investor who accepts a risk profile inconsistent with their own stated tolerance believes they made a considered judgment about that specific fund. A voter who supports a policy once it's repackaged in gain language, having opposed the identical substance months earlier under loss language, believes their position evolved through reasoning. In every one of these cases, a decision was substantially settled before conscious evaluation ever began. Settled by a word choice made by somebody else, in a room the decision maker never entered. The math was available the entire time, it simply wasn't what got used. None of this is a flaw to be corrected, and nothing here is offered as a fix. It's worth noticing that while you were listening to the 4 examples just given, the surgeon, the advisor, the manager, the meat counter, you were, without instruction, evaluating each one relative to some internal reference point you did not consciously select and likely cannot locate. That reference point was shaped in part by the order these examples were presented in, by which frame was spoken first, by the sound of the words 90% landing before the words 10% ever could. The identical mechanism dissected in this video has been operating on the viewer, inside this video in real time. And the next decision made today, framed as a gain by one person or a loss by another, chosen not by you, but by whoever spoke first, will still arrive quietly as something that felt entirely like your own conclusion.